Hey everybody, I'm Doug Gordon. Last month, a study came out that looked at people's online behavior and its effects on support for things like bike lanes among elected officials. To read the headlines and social media posts, you'd think that the main conclusion was that cyclists are too mean on the internet and are hurting their chances of getting safer streets. But that's not exactly what the study showed. In this bonus episode of The War on Cars, we dive into the study and talk about effective advocacy in a world where we are all terminally online. If you want to hear the whole thing, become a Patreon supporter of The War on Cars. As a completely independent podcast, we rely on listener contributions to keep the show going. Go to patreon.com/thewaroncarspod to sign up. When you do, you'll be able to hear bonus episodes like this one and ad-free versions of regular episodes. You'll also get Discord access, pre-sale tickets to live shows, merch discounts, and more. If you've been listening to The War on Cars and have been thinking about signing up, now's a great time because we're running a summer promotion. You can save 20% off an annual membership with code SUMMER20, that's summer and the number 20, now through the end of August. As always, we will send you free stickers and a handwritten thank you note. Again, that's patreon.com/thewaroncarspod. Are cyclists and people who push for better bike infrastructure too mean on social media?
Wait, really? Because, I have to say, I mean, obviously, everybody is too mean on social media, I guess. But, I don't think of cyclists as being particularly so. So I'm really interested to hear where this is coming from.
So there was a study that was just released in the last month. We're going to get to that study in a moment. And it basically was asking this question of what's happening online and how is that affecting the fight for safer streets? It was a pretty anodyne question, actually. And the study is very well done. But the way it got filtered through the media, people might have seen some of the headlines that gave the impression that the study concluded cyclists are too mean online to elected officials in particular, and that's hurting their cause. That's not really what the study said, but let's go through some of the headlines first.
Okay.
Sarah, do you want to read this first big one?
The first big one, it says, local politicians blame rude cycling advocates for lack of high-quality cycle lanes. Huh.
That one was in Forbes.com, and it's by a friend of the podcast, Carlton Reed. I want to apologize to him because the article itself is actually quite good, and oftentimes journalists do not write the headlines, but the way these things work is the headline ricochets around the internet and social media, and it makes it seem like, yeah, rude cyclists, you guys really got to watch what you're saying. You want to read the next one? It's better, but it still doesn't paint the entire picture of what this study was about.
Okay, this one says, online abuse forms a part of the argument against plans for cycling.
That one was in a paper called The Liverpool Echo. The study comes from the University of Liverpool, which we'll get to. Again, online abuse forms part of the argument against plans for cycling. It makes it seem like those cycling campaigners are abusing people, and that means we can't have good infrastructure.
Yeah. Okay. Shall I read the next one?
Yeah, this one was in The Guardian, and I think it's the one we're going to dwell on for a moment.
All right. Forceful bike campaigners can undermine UK cycle lane planning, report finds.
Okay, so this is worth reading, some of the parts, because it really does make it seem like the study concluded that the reason we don't have good bike infrastructure is because of quote-unquote forceful bike campaigners. Will you read the first two paragraphs, Sarah?
Sure. Few local policies generate more debate than cycle lanes, but a report has unveiled a surprising obstacle for local councils when planning bike infrastructure. Some cyclists. The study, based on interviews with dozens of councillors and local officials who lead on transport projects across the UK, found that opponents of bike lanes and similar projects were the most uniformly hostile. But skeptical cycle campaigners were some of the harshest critics.
Not exactly true. We're going to get into this.
All
but
right.
It does make it seem like on the one side, you have the people who oppose bicycle lanes, assuming that means motorists.
Right.
And the other side, you have quote unquote skeptical cycle campaigners who are just being total jerks in ways that must, the way I'm reading that, be worse than the uniformly hostile critics and opponents of bike lanes.
Yeah, like that they were just so harsh. Like, what were they doing is my question. Like, how abusive were they being? This sounds bad.
Sounds bad.
Like bullying and like doxing. I don't know. Like in
those
my
cyclists
mind,
sounds bad. You want to keep going?
Sure. The research published in the journal Local Government Studies found that slightly less than 1/3 of interactions about new projects with pro-cycling voices were seen as negative. Okay, so slightly less than 1/3 of interactions about new projects with pro-cycling voices were seen as negative.
That, by the way, I have to stop you there because I read that in the article. I'm like, so slightly less than 1/3 were negative. Does that mean that slightly more than 2/3 were neutral to positive? Because that doesn't sound bad.
It doesn't sound bad at all.
Yeah.